Incorporated last year to address different needs in the community, Community Helpers Unite has three goals. Open a permitted community kitchen to upcycle food into meals, deliver free cooking and grocery classes to marginalized groups, and provide volunteer opportunities to those with barriers to employment.
So my name is Brandy Beaubier, and I am the founder and CEO of Community Helpers Unite Inc., or CHU, as we are called.
Brandy, what exactly is Community Helpers Unite, and what is it that you do?
Community Helpers Unite was incorporated last year in response to a number of different needs within the community that I was able to identify from my work with the Leftovers Rescue Food Organization. I brought the Leftovers Rescue Food Organization here actually as a caterer. We started having discussions about bringing that mobile app-based model that rescues food. It takes food from donors like Cisco and GFS and Red River Co-op grocery store, coffee shops like Starbucks, even like independent coffee shops and restaurants and things. Two of my favorites that came on board early were St. James Burger and Chip Co. and Modern Coffee. And so what we do is we take the things that they would normally be throwing out at the end of the night just because they're not good for another day to sell, but they're still perfectly good to consume. And we take those things and we redirect them to organizations that are a nonprofit that are feeding people. So organizations like Mama Way and Bear Clan that are making hampers. Organizations like the Sign Foundation that are upcycling foods to make meals, and like in a soup kitchen style, and organizations that do everything, like feeding the public as well as feeding their residents, as well as making hampers, like Andrew Street Family Center. And that way we can increase their food supplies. And the timing of it was so dynamite because there was the pandemic that hit as we were in the process of bringing the model here and like getting our startup funding. So when the pandemic hit in 2020, we were actually just in the middle of our funding proposals. So we were able to access a lot of granting that came up because of COVID and actually launched 6 months earlier than we expected to. So we launched in October of 2020. And by February, I could identify a lot of different gaps and a lot of areas where most of these organizations, regardless of what they were doing, they were struggling, or there was needs that they couldn't meet just because of money, people, and time. And so when I was asked by Riley at Initiative to help out with making sure that the community caring camp at Thunderbird House had food in February. That was kind of a wake-up call because it made me realize how bad some of this need was in these gaps that weren't being filled by other organizations. And one of the things was like being able to do one-off hampers that weren't on a regular schedule. Always having some kind of food supplies that could go out to people in an emergency need. So we started with feeding the community caring camp at Thunderbird House. We made sure that they had two hot meals a day plus coffee twice a day for up to 150 people. And it worked out amazingly. We made sure everybody had food. The people who were attending the teepees to stay warm, they always had something hot to eat and hot to drink. So it made a huge impact, like within 3 weeks that it was operating. And once it was done, we kind of all sat down and they went, Randy, this is a big food thing that like needs to get fixed. And I sat down with a couple of friends and we started planning up how we could do this on a regular basis. And they became my board. And we incorporated Community Helpers Unite. And it's just literally taken off in leaps and bounds since. I'm blown away by the level of support that we've received. At the same time, it's kind of overwhelming to see how big the need is, because the people that we're helping, like, I mean, primarily when we work in downtown and Point Douglas in the North End, we're working with people that are marginalized, that are vulnerable, that the people that get left behind. So, yeah, it's not like these people generally have another option. So, we work with one of my mentors is his name is Mitch Bourbonniere, and he does some of the most amazing community work here in Winnipeg and all over Manitoba, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
But he created and works with a group called Action Therapy and OPK, and they both organizations deal with kids that are at risk youth that are involved with CFS
Mm-hmm.
and their families. So one of the things that we do to provide them support is we offer hampers, last minute emergency. So if an action therapist calls me up and says, "Hey, Brandy, I have a wellness check I have to go do. It's like 10 o'clock at night. I have to go do a wellness check. It's a family of 10. I know that they're usually food insecure.
Mm-hmm.
So can I stop at the warehouse and grab a hamper?" Yeah, absolutely. The answer is always yes. We
Yeah.
make sure that we always have pantry foods. We always have something we can send to these folks, because 9 times out of 10, the issues they're having at home are because there's no food in the house. So to bring them food to the house means they don't have to take any steps further with their CFS worker once the outreach worker comes to do the wellness check. Because the next thing that happens, if they can't diffuse the situation or rectify what the problem was, is the kids get removed from the home. And that's steps in the wrong direction. So
Mm-hmm.
if we can utilize systems like that to stop those things from happening, then we're doing our job. Because
Exactly.
that's one of those gaps that was just being left out of it. Because if you're an action therapy worker, how do you just go and drop $40 on groceries every few days when you go to see one of your clients? Like, it's not sustainable. But the free food being available on a 24-hour basis for when things like that happen makes all the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the way we set up our warehouse is we have a keypad on the door lock and an alarm that has the code set up for volunteers and agencies. So whenever one of these people call and say, "Hey, I have a family I have to go see," or, "Hey, I've got a client who has no food in the house," no problem. They go, we have stuff ready to go, hampers that are pre-made and ready to go. And then I just direct them, "Here, go to this freezer for meat, go to this freezer for bread. We've got potatoes and onions over here, and your pantry bag is over here." And they go, they pick it up, they lock themselves out, they're good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to be there. So I've set up those that's one of the things that I excel in, is I set up those kind of systems
Yeah.
so that we can do all the little things that Community Helpers Unite needs to help support all those agencies.
The work you're doing is just fantastic. It's unfortunate that we need services like this in the first place, though.
Mhm.
I like to watch a lot of like video essays and documentaries and things like that. A lot of the data is focused on the United States, but when they're talking about food challenges, it's not that there's a lack of food out there. It's distribution networks. During the pandemic, grocery stores were hiring security guards to stop people from going through the dumpsters to get the food. You're going to throw it out anyways. You're not making any money off that. Why not donate it? Why not give it to
Exactly.
organizations? But they don't want to put in that effort.
A lot of the donations, the large scale donations that we receive. So to take a step back, so in June of 2021, I resigned from Leftovers as the city lead coordinator, so that they could hire somebody to fill that role, because Community Helpers Unite, like I said, was moving forward so quickly, that I couldn't give Leftovers the time that I needed to make it succeed and be successful. We were already at an average of about 50,000 pounds of food per month being moved,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just growing. And I was like, "Well, I can't do both." So they hired a new city lead, and I was able to focus on Community Helpers Unite 100%, which is awesome, because now Julia Kramer, who's the new city lead,
Mm-hmm.
the second I met her, I was like, "Ooh, she's a doer. She's gonna be so good." And so Leftover still rents a portion of my warehouse on Jarvis.
Mhm.
And so like it's great because I get to hang out with Julia and talk food rescue and make little plans with her and make solutions, and then I have my warehouse coordinator Chantel and our admin Haley, who are working at the warehouse as well, and they help with everything. So like if Julia has need for somebody to help her out with
Mhm.
organizing some things or unloading vehicles, whatever, they're there to help. And it's a really great team. It's a great female led team.
Oh, yeah, we need
And
more of those.
yeah, exactly. And so yeah, um, with leftovers, what we've done is we've worked it out so that leftovers is doing Julia's doing all the leftovers like app
Mhm.
work and like doing all the routes and all that stuff, managing leftovers. But then when large distribution items happen, those large distribution donations happen, and then we kind of take over and help her with that distribution. So I'm still procuring large donations and things like that. So like when Cisco calls us and says, "Hey, Brandy, we've got 70 cases of melons. They're honeydew and cantaloupes. They're coming from Guatemala and they just got checked in at the warehouse here. They're supposed to go to Thunder Bay, but they've been over refrigerated, so they can't go to the grocery store there. They
Mhm.
can't sell them. So the producer in Guatemala says we should just throw them out because they won't make it back there before they've gone bad. So those any other time would have gone in the garbage,
Mhm.
like because they don't even know what to do with them. But because we have that relationship in place with leftovers, instead what we do is we say yes, we will have volunteers come and pick that up. Cisco creates a route on the app. Julia looks at the route and says, "Oh, this is a lot of melons. Let's send it to 3 different agencies." And then what she'll do is she'll split that route so that the volunteers using the app that go to pick up that food from Cisco, they'll
Mhm.
each have a different destination. Or they'll have it all come back to the warehouse. And then Julia will have 5 agencies come to the warehouse to pick up because it's in the immediate vicinity.
Mhm.
So that way, all of those agencies get that food instead of it going in the garbage.
Mhm.
And it works so well.
Well, it's like a
you
perfect
know,
symbiotic relationship at the point, just making sure every aspect is taken care of. It's like, oh,
well,
we
see
can't handle this, but oh, these people can handle it.
now here's the crazy part. It's almost perfect because there's one piece that's missing still.
Oh,
The
oh
one
no.
piece that's missing still is the upcycling of the foods that really can't be given out as is, but
Yeah.
they'd still be good if you turn them into something. So, for instance, we get a call on a Friday afternoon. Most of the agencies aren't open on the weekends unless they
Mm-hmm.
do drop in or emergency resources and stuff.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
most agencies aren't open on the weekend. So, Fridays, it's like if you get a big, big donation, it's like, oh God, what are we going to do with that now? you
yeah.
know, we have like a handful of specific agencies that are open all weekend that we know we can put it on. But sometimes it's stuff that just isn't going to be good long enough. Um, so what we do is we'll use the pink tomatoes as an example. We got a call from GFS.
Mm-hmm.
It was a Friday, like midday. It was like already into the afternoon, and like trying to organize volunteers on a Friday afternoon is
Oh,
lame.
exactly. Everyone already has
No,
their like Friday
they got
plans. They're
their
like, oh,
thing.
I'm going to a
Yeah,
movies. I'm already
right.
booked up.
Yeah. So we get a call Friday afternoon, and
Mm-hmm.
it's GFS, and they say, "Hey, we have 68 cases of tomatoes, and they're pink tomatoes. They're great for salads. They're great for roasting, but they're not going to make it the weekend. So we have to get them out today because they're not open on the weekend either.
Yeah.
We have to get them out today, but they're really like they're going to go bad by Monday. Can you guys take them?" And my immediate thought is, if Mama Way and Bear Clan can take them, then yes, but otherwise we wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
That was pre-Chew. Because now that Chew exists and we have a kitchen that we're using, we can take all those. We can say yes. We'll have somebody come pick them up. We'll bring them to our kitchen, and tonight and tomorrow we will roast them all, and we will freeze them all. We'll roast them, we'll skin them, we'll freeze them, or we'll roast them, we'll freeze them, and we'll put them in soups,
Oh,
or we'll
exactly.
turn them into sauce. and then package it up that way and send it out to the agencies. Or because we are operating two food services now and offering food services to other organizations like Nidinawaymak, which is the new warming shelter at 190 Disraeli. We're feeding 175 unsheltered relatives every day, 7 days a week, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So the way that we're able to stay within our budget for that is by offsetting it with donated food, like these tomatoes. We took these tomatoes in, I believe it was maybe the end of December. Might have been around the holidays. And we took these tomatoes and it was 68 cases. Like, that is no joke. There's 25 pounds in each case. Wow. They're huge. Like, it's a lot of tomatoes.
That's so many.
Right? It's a lot of tomatoes. Our staff at the kitchen, so we use Weedema Kitchen at Salvation Army on Logan, specifically to service that center, because it's only 3 minutes away. Perfect for deliveries. So what we do is we have a group of students that we hired from the Techwalk Culinary Arts program to work the evenings and weekends. So they get a bit of practicum, they get real world experience, they get to do community work at the same time because they know who they're feeding. And it works so great because they get to hone their skills. There's nothing that's going to make you faster at coring tomatoes than coring 68 boxes of tomatoes.
Exactly.
Right? And they're not going to do that in their school setting because it's controlled, right? Like, there's no way they would be doing that in
exactly. In the school, they're like, we're making this specific dish.
Today. We're making this for the whole cafeteria, but that's it. It's not keep doing the tomatoes till all the tomatoes are gone. So we had everybody, all hands on deck. We unboxed and cored all the tomatoes. They oiled them, put them on pans, roasted them off, cooled them, and then froze them in pans, like squished them and froze them in pans so that they could be, even from frozen, they could be dumped into our giant 40-gallon soup kettle and make tomato soup. So all of our tomato soup that we have served to date, because we still are using the last of those tomatoes now, every time we've made tomato soup for Nidinawaymak, it has been with frozen fresh tomatoes that have been roasted. Yeah.
Very cool.
Like, it doesn't get any more homemade than that.
Tackling a problem straight on, problem solving. You have an issue, you see what resources you have available to address said issue, and then in this case, you got a bunch of tomatoes. They're going to go bad. All right. Well, we need people to feed. What do? Yeah, you just change them up. Exactly. You can them. You put them in stews, soups. Like, you're good to go then.
Exactly. I think that food security in Manitoba is about problem solving.
Yeah, you're doing a lot of good work, taking those supplies and items and transferring them into other things to make sure you're feeding people here in Winnipeg. You mentioned a little bit about the different areas like downtown, the North End, people that, really need food. And in our conversations last week, you're talking a little bit about, expanding the area out. Well, what can you tell me all about that?
Well, not much yet. I don't like to tell people things until I know that they're happening.
Fair enough.
We are in the process right now because when Nidinawaymak started on December 1st, the plan was for it to run from December 1st till April 30th. And there wasn't really any confirmation of whether it would move forward to become a year-round center or if it always would be just a wintertime emergency shelter. So what has changed is that I don't wait for people to give me answers. So like waiting for something like that to materialize is super stressful because I have staff now. I had to hire a bunch of staff. I went from Community Helpers Unite being me, my 2 board members, and Chantel, to now we have 24 staff total. And 6 of them are full-time. So the part-time staff is one thing because they're mostly students, but the full-time staff, I need to keep my ladies employed and make sure that they have that income that they can count on without having to go somewhere else or be laid off or something like that. So in preparation for April 30th coming, we have taken on other food contracts, so other food service contracts. So we're now providing the food and on-site cooking and everything at Kikanan Center, which is an Indigenous old folks home, senior center. It's like a half assisted living and half independent living.
Okay.
So it's got like a 55 plus an old age facility, like long-term care. So we've now brought back cooking on site, which hasn't happened in a few years, apparently. The contract for food services had been contracted out to one of the larger for-profit organizations, and it was not going well. The quality of food had gone down, the quality of service had gone down, and all the food was being off-sited and brought in and heated and then served. So yeah, lots of preservatives, lots of processed foods, things like that that don't need to be fed to our seniors. So we've brought back in from scratch cooking and monitoring the salt levels, monitoring the sugar levels, by providing whole foods rather than processed foods.
It's not just, the quality of the food changes when you're there, but it's a whole experience. Like, people can smell it. They can
Yes.
see people moving around. You get excited.
Exactly. That's the big thing. When I went in one day at dinner time to introduce myself to the residents, one of the guys yelled from the back, "The only thing you're missing is is cooking it here so I can smell it from down the hall." And I told, at that time we were about a week away from our permit, so I said, "Don't worry," I said, "give us another week, it's coming." Next week you'll be able to smell the food from down the hall. Yeah, and now here we are. So I bet he'll be coming running down to the dining room as soon as he thinks lunch is ready.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and because it's an Indigenous old folks home, the one of our mandates is to bring in more cultural foods. So bringing back wild meat. Instead of doing a roast turkey, when we decide to do a roast, we'll be doing a roast goose or a duck. Instead of doing beef stew, we're doing wild stew with moose or elk, or moose and elk and deer, and things like that, and doing fish on a regular basis, like whitefish, because those are all part of the cultural diet. And a good example is Three Sisters soup, which is corn and beans. Bye. Sorry. Three Sisters soup, which is corn and beans and squash.
Ooh,
So it's
that sounds
basically
good.
Yeah, it's and you can do so, like, that's the base of the soup, so you can add meat to it if you want, or you can leave it as is. But it's those things that grow naturally here, and that people have been eating here for thousands of years. So bringing back stuff like that, where we can control the salt, we can control the sugar, and provide them with food that reminds them of when they were young.
Mennonite
Yeah.
foods. I know they're not like the top tier of foods or anything. It's basically just cream and salt, but there's always like a special place in my heart.
But there
Like,
are things that take you back.
I'm gonna use the word like almost a spiritual connection to like cultural foods that have this
Absolutely.
significance from your childhood or like family life.
Well, and that's the thing too, is I'm a firm believer that food is medicine, and that if people are fed well, then they will be able to work on other things in their lives. So whether that's like for the people that we're feeding, whether that's addictions or past traumas or mental health issues, all those things are a lot easier to deal with when you know that you have food, and the food that you have, or the food that you're being given, is good and delicious. When it makes you feel like someone cares about you when you're being served good food. So that's been our main goal for feeding relatives at Medinawaymak over the last 5 months, has been just to make them feel safe and comfortable and loved.
there's a lot of people that are struggling. Like even people that you like they have a house, they have food.
Mm-hmm.
It can be a struggle sometimes to pay those bills, make sure everything's saved up. And I think people are realizing, hey, society, or at least our ultra corporatism and materialism and just capitalism in that sense,
Mm-hmm.
is taking away from the value of our lives
Yes.
overall. And I think people are getting fed up, and that's why they're being inspired to become
Yeah.
activists. Of course, there are some people that are getting into the doomer mindset. I know sometimes when depression hits, I can fall into that hole, but we got to
Yep.
help each other out. That's the only way we're going to move forward. You
Oh,
come together, and when people are together, that's when we can start talking about social and political changes as well.
yeah, and that's the thing, is the togetherness is that's paramount. Is keeping togetherness at the forefront and keeping teamwork at the forefront rather than trying to compete with each other and trying to outdo one another. Instead, just get the job done.
Hmm.
And I'm so thankful, and I feel very, very blessed that I've been able to have this amazing group of people that I've surrounded myself with that are all thinkers and doers, just like me. So,
Hmm.
like, when I have an idea, I'm not afraid to say it, because I know that if I have an idea and it's around long enough in my head that I'm thinking about telling someone, as long as I tell someone else, it'll turn into something, because the people around me are thinkers and doers as well. And maybe my idea that I have, that I don't know anything about how to execute on, but maybe I'll tell the right one of those people and they'll be able to execute on it. Like, because there's like a good example is this. I'm working with the city on this. They're building an emergency response task force
Hmm.
for when people are displaced. So, like, for example, there was how we got involved in this. There was a fire at a hotel where people are living in the upstairs,
Hmm.
and these 18 people were displaced. So the city immediately puts them up in a hotel, and then they have to figure out what to do with them. Like, how do we rehome these people? How do we keep them fed? That's a huge expense for the city.
Hmm.
And in this situation, they didn't know what to do because these people are all high needs. So they contacted Marion from St. Boniface Street Links, who is an expert in homing people, finding places for people to live either temporarily or permanently. She's
Hmm.
awesome. She also runs Moorburg House.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so she contacted me and said, "Hey, Brandy, like, I have places where I can home all these people, and I have a contact for where to get furniture, but I'm looking still for clothing and food. So clothing, linens, and food." Now I said, "Well, I can provide hampers to all these people. We'll make 18 hampers tomorrow at work and at the warehouse, and then for the clothing and linens, we have a partner group that we work with really closely. I'll call them right now, and tomorrow they should be able to line up clothing and linens for all of them. What size beds are they getting? Send me a list of male or female, what size they wear roughly, and what size shoes, and we'll get whatever we can out to them."
Hmm.
And sure enough, our groups were able to provide clothing and food and linens, like sheets and pillowcases, blankets and towels, for all of these people to be in their new living spaces. So a handful of them went to one space that's more of like an assisted living kind of thing, because that was their needs. And the others got moved into an apartment building where it was all 2-bedroom suites. So, because they're all kind of used to living kind of together, it's like a rooming house sort of situation.
Hmm.
So to move into an independent suite would be bad for any of them, because then super loneliness sets in, and that isolation sets in. So what she did was she paired them up and got them all into 2-bedroom suites in the same block. So they're all on the same floor. And now they all have a space and they can still all kind of be together.
Hmm.
So it worked out just perfectly. So now because of the success of that, we're working on this little task force with the city so that when these things happen, they know who they can call immediately and have those wheels put in motion.
I think something that we can learn from this whole conversation is that when people work together, when people are united, and there's not this kind of profit incentive or this competitive mindset, a
Mhm.
lot can get done for the benefit of everyone.
Absolutely.
Like, if someone wants to help out, what is Community Helpers Unite looking for right now in terms of support, and where can people go to find more information to help you out?
The thing that we need the most is financial support. We need operational funding so that we can continue all the good work we're doing. We do not have any funding for operational costs right now, like rent and utilities and vehicle expenses and fuel. Some of our salaries are paid as honorariums. So even cash donations that we can flip into honorarium money for some of our student staff, that is wonderful as well. So we do have a GoFundMe link set up, but honestly, they charge us fees, so whatever. We accept e-transfers. We have all of our information is on our social media pages, either on Instagram under @WeGotCHU_WPG, or We Got You Winnipeg, and on Community Helpers Unite Inc. on Facebook. We accept e-transfers. We can provide tax receipts for larger donations over $1,000 through the North End Community Renewal Corporation. So that would be a matter of just contacting me directly, and we work out that flow through funding that we have going with them.
Enjoying the content from You Multicultural? Subscribe so you can stay up to date with everything that we're doing. I'm Ryan Funk. This was You Talk, and have yourself a good one.